Love this podcast? Support it and sponsor today. Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.
Wavelength.
Just because we're doing our lectures online doesn't mean that we need to then retreat and make life, all about being alone.
Sparking the convos about Adelaide.
I think there's not enough knowledge around the severity of the long-term impacts that a concussion can give you, and it's not really educated enough.
You should be having.
The minimum job search requirements is definitely problematic, and it is up to a computer to decide whether you receive your payments each month.
This is Wavelength on Fresh 92.7.
Welcome back to Wavelength, sparkling the convos about Adelaide you should be having. I'm your host, Cass, and we have a very special host with us today. You love her, you miss her. It is the gorgeous Grace.
Oh my God, stop. Can you believe it?
It's amazing. We've just spent the past hour chatting, and I'm so glad that you're here.
Oh, I can't help myself when I'm around you, Cass. I can't shut up.
Oh my God, stop it. Making me blush.
Thank you for having me back.
Anytime. Before we jump in, we do need to acknowledge that we're recording Wavelength on the land of the Kaurna people of the Adelaide Plains and pay respect to elders past and present.
We recognise and respect their cultural heritage, beliefs and relationship with the land. We acknowledge that they are of continuing importance to the Kaurna people living today, and we also extend that respect to other Aboriginal language groups and other First Nations.
Maggie is away for her birthday. Happy birthday, Maggie. And have a gorgeous time in the Gold Coast. Don't miss us too much.
Yes, happy birthday, Maggie. We also have some pretty big things to announce, don't we, Cass?
I know. How could I forget? A couple weeks ago, Wavelength was awarded the Excellence in News and Current Affairs at the Community Broadcasting Association of Australia. How amazing.
It's such an achievement for our team. It's so exciting. And we've said 100 times, it could not be possible without all of our fantastic volunteers here at Fresh.
Absolutely. And also, our audience, we absolutely love you guys. To get some national recognition is just absolutely fantastic. And about time, if I don't say so myself.
Fingers crossed for more next year.
Oh my God, we've got it in the bag, don't we?
We'll try.
All right, look, I reckon we should get into the episode. Tonight we are talking about the World Teacher Day that just passed, and later on we talk you through why Australians are drinking less alcohol.
Yes, and then later on we talk about the Palestine-Israel conflict, but right now we're talking to Alison May from the CFS about controlled burning and El Nino.
Ella, take it away.
Wavelength on Fresh 92.7.
How do you predict El Nino will impact South Australia in terms of bushfire risk?
So what we know is that after the recent above average rainfall, we've had increased vegetation growth across the state, and that means that we have what we call high fuel loads. And we're seeing a rapid switch from these large amounts of rain and cold, wet conditions to below average rain and above average temperatures. So those high fuel loads are rapidly drying out. That means that they pose a greater risk of fire.
How should residents of bushfire-prone areas prepare their bushfire prevention plans?
So we strongly recommend that everyone, if you do currently have a plan or have had one in the past, that you review that at least annually. So that means making sure that it's up to date with the conditions around your home, so that's a topic that you've discussed with all members of your family and ideally with your neighbours and your extended family if they live elsewhere. So updating that plan is absolutely critical.
How can people stay informed about bushfire risks facing their area?
So there's a number of ways, and we would recommend that people do all of them. The first is to go to the CFS website and register, subscribe to the warning and the fire danger rating information to be sent to get the notifications about those. You can also subscribe to the Alert SA app. It's a free app that people can download, and the beauty of that is you can nominate a whole number of different areas that you're particularly wanting to be notified about. So you can make that as small or as large as you would like. And of course, on social media.
How should parents educate their children on the safety risks associated with bushfire season?
Something that we emphasise at every opportunity, that bushfire preparedness and having a survival plan needs to be something that is done with every member of your household. So research tells us is that children are very aware and are concerned about these kind of risks, these increasing risks that they're learning about and seeing around them, and having an opportunity to feel empowered and involved and included in what the family is doing to reduce their risk, but also to have a role should the worst happen and you need to leave the house or be faced with a crisis. When they see mum and dad potentially running around doing things, it's really important for them to have their own little plan. There's things like Red Cross has a fantastic pillowcase program where children can nominate what the things that are most precious to them are and what they would grab and whack in a pillowcase that they can carry if they need to leave home. And having a role in these things and feeling a little bit empowered, we know that this makes a big difference to their resilience and their recovery post an event.
Are there any resources you would recommend to aid parents in this conversation?
Yeah, so there's tailored resources on the CFS website aimed at children. We have many of our community events. We have resources for children, colouring in book, easy English explanatory books about what bushfire is and some of the things that they might hear, helping them understand those. So anytime that you see CFS represented at a community event, or if we're holding community information session, all of which are flagged on our website, we tend to have those resources for parents to use with children. And we also have resources that we've made available to schools in South Australia, a really comprehensive set of learning modules and lesson plans that South Australian teachers can access and employ for school.
Sparking the convos about Adelaide you should be having. Wavelength on Fresh 92.7.
Thanks so much, Ella and Alison. After the break, Cass and I will talk to you through the Palestine conflict. You're listening to Wavelength.
Wavelength.
Welcome back to Wavelength, sparking the convos about Adelaide you should be having. Right before the break, Ella spoke with Alison May about El Nino.
Up next, we're talking about the Palestine conflict. You've probably seen all about it on the news, but a lot of people don't actually understand what the conflict is.
Yes, but don't worry, we are here to help. This dispute is over a specific area of land, the Gaza Strip. Palestine and Israel both claim ownership of this land, with the conflict being one of the longest and most controversial conflicts in modern history.
Israel was initially discovered as a state in 1948 to provide a safe haven for Jewish people following the Second World War. The conflict started after the majority of Arab population living in the land at the time did not want to give up their land, and thus the land was separated. After many conflicts during this time, Israel actually took ownership of more land than Palestine.
Now fast forward to today, Palestinians primarily live in two areas that were captured by Israel in 1967, the West Bank and the Gaza Strip, and the Israeli government controls access and movement in these areas, in particular the Gaza Strip, where human rights activists are saying is like an open prison.
Since local elections in 2006, Hamas has controlled Gaza, but is considered a terrorist organisation by many countries, including the UK and Australia. Hamas does not acknowledge Israel's right to exist, and that Palestinians should own all the land from the River Jordan to the Mediterranean Sea.
Both Hamas and Israel have both been accused of war crimes because of their attacks on civilians in both sides. Hamas attacked Israel, and to respond, Israel has killed thousands of people in Gaza, with a total death count up to 10,328, with 4,000 of that number being kids as of the 11th of November. There are 2 million people living in Gaza, with 50% of the population being under 18. There has been some extremely disturbing imagery coming out of this conflict, most notably Palestinians coming out of being held hostage, being tagged and numbered, eerily close to something we have seen before in history.
Israel has recently agreed to a 4-hour daily humanitarian pause on attacks on Hamas. Some are calling this a pause or a ceasefire, but it's a little more complicated than that.
Can I make the distinction between a humanitarian pause and a ceasefire? You know, we are doctors in our nature, and what you are asking us to do with a humanitarian pause is to bring in the equipment necessary to stitch people up and repair them, and then to start the bombing again, and for us to then fix them. That is not enough.
With this global tragedy, it can feel like you're powerless. Unfortunately, Israel is controlling all resources and money coming into the Gaza Strip. There is funds that are available to support the cause, including Doctors Without Borders, which we just heard the director in that clip. There are resources online also that identify businesses to boycott that are actively supporting the conflict.
I think it is really important to mention that Israel is the biggest country in the Middle East and has one of the biggest militaries in the world, as well as exporting millions of billions of dollars worth of weaponry to the US. It is simply not a fair fight, and Hamas does not represent the Palestine community, with 75% of the population wanting different government. I also just want to have a little chat just between us as two journalists. This is obviously so horrific to see in the news, but it's also really great that we are seeing this in the mainstream media so often.
Absolutely. And as Australians, we have such an immense amount of privilege being where we are right now, but it's so important to remain vigilant. And we do have that privilege to be able to turn our phones off, turn the news off, but to make sure we are staying tapped into what's going on and educated, making sure it is factual and logical and correct, and keeping those conversations going. It's really important.
Absolutely. I think you can see a lot in the news that after a news cycle, it kind of starts to wear off this kind of national outrage of what's going on, but it needs to continue in order for the support to continue. We've seen it with the Russia and Ukraine conflict. People a lot of the time, when it's not in the media every single day, seem to think that it's not happening. It is still happening. People are still dying. People are still needing help. And so talking about it, even if we can't give them what they need right now because most of Gaza is being controlled, at least we're talking about it and have this conversation so people who are in power can do things to help.
Absolutely, keeping the right people accountable.
Right after the break, we talk about the teacher strike. You're on Wavelength.
Wavelength.
Welcome back to Wavelength. This week, Marco talked with an SA teacher, Miss Grace Garver, a teacher at Nazareth and a winner of a Minister's Language Scholarship Catholic School Educator Award, about the teacher strikes.
Wavelength on Fresh 92.7.
Grace, welcome on Wavelength. Why should we celebrate World Teachers' Day?
World Teachers' Day is a wonderful opportunity to give gratitude and recognise all the teachers and also all the support staff that contribute to the lives of young people today. I think it's really important that we understand that teachers don't only impact a child or a young person academically, but they're also there to help socially and emotionally. And I think it's a real privilege to work with young people. And, you know, sometimes we get to spend more time with our students and the young people in our care than their families do. So it's really nice to recognise all the hard work that goes into this vocation and how important teachers are, and how they can shape the lives of the next generation.
Yeah, you're shaping our future, really.
Exactly.
So it is important to celebrate you. We talk about young people. You're a young teacher. Yeah. And what's it like to be on the other side? Because you finished not long ago, but what's it like?
I often find myself reflecting and thinking, oh, this was me not too long ago. Look, I think this answer will vary from, teacher to teacher, but I absolutely love it. And I think it's really... I'd like to think that I've taken the best qualities that I saw in my teachers from schooling and hopefully have embodied them. I find myself sometimes doing some of the things that my teachers did, and I, kind of take a moment like, oh my gosh, did I just do that? And it's a real privilege to be able to be in that position and be able to impact someone's life, hopefully more positively than negatively, and nurture them and be able to mentor them. And I think that's what I particularly love about being a younger teacher, is that I feel like I can relate to where the students are at. And I teach in a secondary context. So that was me, less than 10 years ago. So I feel like that understanding gives me another element to really be there for them.
But do you stop and think, oh, now I get the way I was thinking, and you stop and say, okay, I can justify that. I would have justified myself if I was a student. Absolutely.
And I think, I catch myself out and I'm like, I thought like that too at their age. And I think that sometimes we're too critical, and, a lot comes with life experience. And they're only, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. And, school life is very different to the outside world. So definitely, I won't tell them that in front of the class that I can completely understand where they're coming from, but I do.
But not only the shape of the future, the shape of the teachers as well, because you've been awarded an amazing recognition at World Teachers' Day. What is that?
On Friday the 27th of October, Educators SA held a World Teachers' Day gala ball at the Wine Centre in Adelaide. And yes, I was fortunate enough to receive a scholarship award from the Minister of Education. So this award, there was 5 for language teachers of South Australia, and they were awarded to teachers of different sectors. So, for example, here in South Australia, we have 3 different sectors: the Department for Education, Catholic Education South Australia, and also the independent sector of South Australia. So it's an application process, and there's a panel that discerns the fortunate recipients. And yeah, I was fortunate enough to be able to win a scholarship to partake some studies overseas. So being a language teacher, my major is Italian. And so next year in 2024, I will have the opportunity to spend a month in Calabria studying at Piccola Università, and hopefully further developing my language skills to bring back and use in the classroom.
Will I be fortunate enough to fit in the luggage? Because that'll be cool for us.
I might have to pay for excess luggage. That seems to be a common trend with me and my trips. So maybe.
Thank you for being on Wavelength.
Thank you.
Sparking the convos about Adelaide you should be having. Wavelength on Fresh 92.7.
Thank you so much for that, Marco and Grace. I think that we can all say that we have a teacher that has shaped us and who we are as a person. And so there really need to be more recognition and appreciation for those people, because we are spending a lot of our critical time when we're younger with them.
They're shaping the next generation. Absolutely.
Absolutely. I definitely have a lot of teachers who supported me probably when I didn't deserve it as much, being a little rat bag in high school.
Yeah.
But were endlessly supportive, and that's, I think, why I am who I am today.
I still talk to teachers from both primary school and high school, and I'm so sorry that you had to deal with me, but just no.
That is the most Grace thing ever. I can say that.
If they're listening, I appreciate you so much.
Well, up next, Kayla talks us through why Australians are drinking less. Don't go anywhere. You're here on Wavelength.
Wavelength.
You're here on Wavelength on Fresh 92.7. Last year, we covered a story about a non-alcoholic bottle shop that opened up on Hunt Street.
That's right, and the shift has only continued, with recent stats showing that Australians are drinking 38% less. Let's work out why.
Wavelength explains on Fresh 92.7.
The media has grabbed onto lines like Generation Sober or Sober Curious to describe Gen Z's attitude to alcohol. What exactly are they talking about though, and how have habits of young Australians changed over the last few decades when it comes to drinking? Well, according to stats published by the Australian Institute of Health and Welfare, there has been a 133% rise in young adults aged between 18 to 24 choosing not to drink alcohol. This means that around 21% of young adults in this age range have chosen sobriety, a number that has doubled between 2001 and 2019. Not only that, according to Wellbeing SA's epidemiology branch, only 1/3 of SA teens aged between 15 to 17 consumed alcohol in 2022, which is a number that has dropped over the last 5 years. These trends have also led to a rise in non-alcoholic drink sales, with the non-alcohol beer, wine and spirit alternatives becoming ever so popular amongst the youth. This is not just a trend amongst Australian young adults either. Publications like Forbes and the BBC have published similar pieces which suggest that across the world, those under 24 are embracing sobriety. So what has contributed to Gen Z's more sober lifestyle choices? Well, a range of factors have influenced these decisions. One of these is the rise in social media. With greater chances of drunken antics being recorded and posted online, young adults are very aware with how this can impact their everyday life. Another side effect of social media has become the normalisation of sobriety. With not only more access to information about the impacts of alcohol, but the sharing of personalised stories has created a trend where being sober is no longer seen as weird or against the norm. Sober talk and other such hashtags have gained popularity and are influencing people to be more conscious in their consumption. Of course, especially in Australia where the cost of alcohol is rising, finances have also had a significant influence on people choosing to be more selective about their alcohol purchases. Recently, a university student from Adelaide told The Advertiser how he would spend $100 a night up to 4 nights a week, and since cutting out alcohol has saved almost $14,000 in a year. This report was also backed up by Deputy Director of the Centre for Alcohol Policy Research at La Trobe University, Amy Petta, in a recent article published by SBS News. She states how young people are more worried about the economic impacts of the cost of living, and this has allowed them to not only not want to spend that much money on alcohol, but making sure that their future is secure by not having any sort of drunken antics or incriminating videos being online. Petta also mentioned the normalisation of sobriety and that those who abstain for cultural, health or other reasons are helping break the social stigma. Australia has a long documented history with binge drinking culture, and as more information about the impacts of alcohol, along with the young people being influenced by their sober friends, the culture around Australia's alcohol consumption is slowly starting to shift. While 21% of sober young adults is far from a majority, it is enough of a swing to cause a stir. Flinders University National Centre for Education and Training on Addiction Director Professor Jacqueline Bowden has also mentioned the influence of social media on the change of attitudes around alcohol, stating that the shift from alcohol consumption is also not causing Gen Z to go towards other substances. In her words, she says that the younger generation is actually just choosing a healthier lifestyle overall.
Sparking the convos about Adelaide you should be having. Wavelength on Fresh 92.7.
Thanks for that, Kayla. After the break, we have heaps good news. You're listening to Wavelength.
Wavelength.
You're here on Fresh 92.7 listening to Wavelength. It's that time of the episode. It's heaps good news.
Trevor, take it away.
I know there's gonna be heaps good news on Wavelength.
Adelaide has been given the title of the coolest state in Australia by globally popular American newspaper The Wall Street Journal. The state was noticed for its accessibility, for being a smaller population compared to other states, make it as comfortable, less stressful to roam about, as it is also pedestrian friendly, with great wineries and restaurants with diverse flavours. The city supposedly stood out compared to other states and cities around Australia. The annual Harndorf Christmas markets are back for one weekend only. The popular markets will be held on the 15th, 16th and 17th of December 2023. The markets will be available to walk around and experience from 3 p.m, 10 p.m, Friday through Sunday. The markets will have live entertainment, family-friendly activities and shopping stalls with locally handcrafted gifts. The market is located at 66 to 68 R. Isht Road, Harndorf. The Moonlight Cinemas are back this year with opening night starting on the 30th of November, starting the season off with Killers of the Flower Moon. The Christmas season lineup of movies can include old favourites such as Die Hard, The Nightmare Before Christmas and Mighty Duck, and many more family-friendly films this festive season. At the park, new releases can include Barbie, Dumb Money and Killers of the Flower Moon, and a screening of a fan favourite Jurassic Park. More sessions for January and February will be announced mid-December. The cinema is located at the back of the Botanic Park at Botanic Park Plaintree Drive, Adelaide. It will be held till mid-February. Adult ticket prices starting from $20 for general admission.
Sparking the convos about Adelaide you should be having. Wavelength on Fresh 92.7.
Thank you so much for that, Trevor. And that brings us to the end of the show tonight. Thank you so much for listening.
Make sure you're subscribed to the Wavelength podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere else you get your podcasts. You can listen back to our old episodes right now, and tonight's episode will be up very soon. And officially, that's all from us tonight.
Oh my God, it's been so great to have you back in the studio. Thank you so much for coming in, Grace. I appreciate it.
I never want to leave. Have me forever.
Honestly, ever. Anytime you want to come in, we love you.
Oh, stop it. Bye, love you.
Wavelength.
Love this podcast? Support it and sponsor today. Simply head to AuscastNetwork.com for details.